So guys, welcome to the News Wave. Now, a lot of stuff happened yesterday and even this morning, actually, and into late night last night. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about right now, so let's just get started. First thing to talk about today is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch and its monstrous sales. I mean, monster sales. Something that's pretty obvious, I think, going forward with any of these really big Nintendo franchises, especially any that have been kind of established in the past. I'm thinking more like Splatoon 2 even, for example, but maybe not as much ARMS. However, the Switch has a lot of games that are coming out that people are just waiting for heavily right now because the Switch, of course, is getting these like releases that are kind of spread out. But the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe hit the market in the US alone, selling 500,000 copies on day one. In fact, it has now become the best-selling Mario Kart game since ever. This is it. This is the best-selling one. If you want to go back to, say, Mario Kart on the Wii, which is the next biggest selling one, keep in mind the Wii had a ton of units out there at this time, 434,000 on its first day. This one, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, 459,000 units on the first day. We don't know weekend numbers at all. And I'm telling you, of course, Saturday and Sunday are also big days for sales. Since most people may be at work on Friday, can't get to the store, they tend to travel out on Saturday and Sunday as well. So I would be curious to see what the weekend numbers are. Now, according to a lot of different news outlets, it looks like Nintendo is claiming that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has sold about 45% of Switches out there Mario Karts have sold currently, which is very high. That would mean that Mario Kart, if we had to really take an extrapolated guess on Switch units to this point, Mario Kart's probably sold somewhere around 1.5 million if we're to believe Nintendo on this one. And that is, that's a lot of units. I actually would have been curious to see how many Mario Karts would have sold if it came out like next year when there's a much larger Switch base. I mean, honestly, that could have been like a 3 or 4 million unit seller on day one if they were put enough games out there, since the attach rate was very high. The attach rate was high on the Wii U though. So I feel like Nintendo saw this coming, right? I mean, this had to be a thing. They had to have known, wow, Mario Kart's going to sell well with its massive attach rate on the Wii U. I mean, it sold like 8 million units to 13 million potential customers with systems. That's not counting any of the people who had to buy it twice because maybe their Wii U was lost, stolen, or broken. So yeah, the attach rate on Mario Kart is high. This is a game that will sell for a while. I'm talking like years. Probably along with Zelda. Zelda's going to sell for years also on the Switch. And I mean, it's to be expected, right? Mario Kart, Zelda, Mario Odyssey, these are all games that will sell for a while. Mario Odyssey is going to have a probably record-breaking, I would say, attach rate and sales on day one at holiday season as well. I could see that game potentially selling out despite probably millions of copies going out all across the world. That will be a beast as well. So, of course, Mario Kart 8 also helped sell out a ton of Switches with Best Buys, GameStops, everyone reporting that they had stock, but they sold out in hours. So Best Buys had, from what I could tell, from 10 to 20. GameStops had a little less than 10 or 10 at a time. Either way, you have to give these to all the different places in the world, because keep in mind the Switch was a worldwide release. It wasn't done in one region like the PS4 and the Xbox One did, where they did a staggered release, US, then Japan, then other parts of the world, all at different times to help their manufacturing. Nintendo released essentially the same console to all places because it's region free. And there we go. We have Mario Kart rolling along. Like I and many other people said, Mario Kart is a big seller. So I don't know where the roof is for this Mario Kart on the Switch. This could be a 10 million seller, guys. I'm not even kidding. Zelda could end up at 15 million, the way everything's going, and by the time it's all said and done, because these are games that will probably sell for the next 3 or 4 years, until a sequel of some kind come out for either one, because remember, Zelda took 4 years to make. Mario Kart is, again, also a sparse release as well. That could be another 3-4 years before we see another Mario Kart on the Switch. We'd probably see one, to be honest with you guys, on the DS before we see another one on the Switch. So it's going to be, I should say 3DS, it's going to be a little while before we see another one, but they're going to give this room to sell. It's a great game. It works well. It plays great. The online's good. So great. Everything's good here on this front. ARMS will be the interesting one, because ARMS is a new IP. It's not an established old one like Mario Kart or Zelda. It is Nintendo's first shot since really Splatoon to try to make a big, I would say, AAA new IP at this point. So Splatoon went well, they take another shot with ARMS. We'll see what happens there, because that is up before Splatoon 2, which Splatoon 2 is going to sell well. Let's be honest here. Oh, and real quick, just a quick heads up, guys. Square looks to be running a massive sale on all of their games and different things, all Final Fantasy mostly related, on their website right now. Things are up to like 75% off. They have things like, even, guys, you can get original PS1 games here on this site. You're seeing it here. big clearance sale. I thought it was really cool. Like I said, you can get any of the PS1 games like Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy Chronicles, Final Fantasy IX, Origins. It's really cool. I did order these a while back on this site. They kind of come to you in a greatest hits case, but the CDs are CDs. Like, they're not burned on those like black bottom discs anymore. They're all like regular clear CDs, and it's interesting, but it's all from Square. It's all legit and on the up and up. And really, I mean, $7.50 for a clean new copy of Chrono Cross is pretty good. This next bit of news is pretty funny, and it's kind of hard to believe, actually. So we all were hearing that Nintendo was upping production and that they were going to get Switches out the door faster for the March release because of the high demand. They were trying their hardest to get these Switch units either to America or to different parts of Europe, wherever they needed to be. And a lot of us, I think, kind of like raised an eyebrow and said, okay, that's good to hear, I guess. And then we hear the window of 2 million. That's a lot. And then their reports come out, 2.74 million. I think it left a lot of us trying to figure out how Nintendo got 750,000 more Switches out in what seemed to be a month or two's time for promising to now, and how they would have done that logistically. Well, they definitely didn't bring it over on a tugboat like usually you do. You bring it over on a boat. It takes a while, but it's cheaper. It makes more sense. They decided to fly these systems to different parts of the world to get them there on time. And flying units over, that is not at all normal for any company, really. I mean, most time they put it, especially if it's coming from somewhere like China, for example, where a lot of production happens, they don't fly them, because that's so expensive to do. Like, it's insanely expensive. You put it on a boat, like I said, and you kind of pull it across the ocean to get it to wherever you need it to be. And it's a little out there for people to keep saying that they're shorting demand when they are paying through the nose to get these things flown over. In fact, according to calculations by the Wall Street Journal, Nintendo is paying about $45 per unit to get them over there in time. $45. They are making, with that cutting into their profits, they're probably making no money on those Switches that came over, that they flew to different parts of the world to get to people, get in their hands for this release, because they knew the demand was so high that people would want them this badly, and people still do. They're not going to do that now, though. After they've crossed their window of release, I feel like they probably flew these in to try to get them in just under where we had the full fiscal year ending. I think that's when they wanted to do it. Get it out there so they could include it on their fiscal year reports. That's why they wanted 2.74 million showing up on those reports, because investors didn't completely believe in the Switch. We'll just say that. They didn't 100% believe in the Switch before all of this went down. When it was first announced, you could see the investors were waning now and then. The stock was kind of going up and down a little bit. And when it came out, demand was met with enough supply, obviously, to at least get it out there. Now, there's a lot of people who still want that, I understand, but 2.74 million is a lot of units in the first month. I'm very curious to see what April is like when they report those numbers, because if it comes back that it crosses like the 3.5 million threshold, maybe even 4 million, that's more than the Xbox One. That's right there with the PS4 during holiday season, which is ridiculous. We're not anywhere near holiday season, and these things are selling out like it's Christmas right now. So don't expect, I wouldn't expect more Switch stock, probably for another 2 weeks, because like I said, when they put it on the boat after it's been done, it usually does take roughly a week and a half or so to get across the ocean, sorted, and then into stores, which of course in the store's warehouse, up to them to get it to their store. I'd say about 2 weeks. So look for, like, I would say second week in this month of May to where you start seeing them show up on store shelves. Maybe sooner, that'd be great, but I wouldn't count on it. I'd say right around that second week, maybe like 15th or 16th. Oh boy, the Pokemon Stars rumors are ramping up going into E3, and really it should be, because I think everyone at this point is expecting it to be announced. I don't think any of us are kind of sitting here saying it's probably not going to be announced, because Pokemon on the Switch makes a ton of sense. It will push units, and honestly, it's probably pretty easy to do considering the high resolution sprites were found, probably put in there originally because they were expecting this Switch release to happen, and they started a marketing campaign that kind of pushes this theory of Pokemon Stars along. So the Japanese Pokemon Center is adding a new line of merchandise inspired by Cosmog, one of the big legendary monsters in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and the merchandising line that they are now pushing is called Look Upon the Stars collection. It seems very telling, doesn't it? It's all about the constellations in the sky and everything, and it looks to be pointing towards Pokemon Stars, and this would start to happen now leading up to E3 because that is where we're expecting the announcement. That is one of the games that I can probably tell you will happen because it makes a lot of sense. Eurogamer reported it, Tom Phillips did, a while ago. I think we've all been kind of waiting for this. I know a lot of people like to kind of attack Eurogamer about some of their predictions, but this one, realistically, it makes the most sense right now. I mean, honestly, the Super Nintendo Mini one makes a lot less sense than, say, Pokemon Stars. So now everybody is doing this thing where they are sending those little tweets out to the Nintendo and Pokemon handles where they're kind of with the raised eyebrow and looking up. And it's expected because this is one of the biggest pointing an index finger towards a subject like this you can do. I mean, Stars is there, it's Pokemon, they're looking up constellations. I would expect this merchandise line to be pointing exactly towards what we think it is. Pokemon Stars, I still think is real. I do think it'll be at E3, and it is there to lead the Switch charge into the holiday season because the game lineup they are developing right now with some of these fabled announcements. I would say fabled because it's not quite there yet. We're not hearing it from Nintendo or Game Freak or anybody. But this lineup that we keep talking about, that is a possibility, would be a massive, massive unit for Nintendo going into the holiday season. I feel like it's something that Sony and Microsoft will both be envious of when they start hitting the shelves. Because everything that we're talking about, whether it's a Metroid or a Pokemon or a Xenoblade maybe a little less because that's more of a niche following, Mario obviously, are all million game unit sellers. These are all things that companies desperately want. Anywhere from 1 to 5 million, sometimes more than that if they can. And this is it. Pokemon Stars will probably sell if Sun and Moon or anything telling where it was 15.44 million. Pokemon is another game that would have an extremely high attach rate. So look out at E3. I do think Pokemon Stars is already written down, penciled in for their Direct. Next bit of news, guys, is barely news. I'm sorry, but people sent this to me so much, I thought I'd talk about it very briefly. Forbes appears to be at it again with some of their opinion pieces, which is fine. You're allowed to write whatever you want on the internet, obviously, but this doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'll talk to you exactly why. Over on Forbes, they are talking about Microsoft. What they should do is rip off Nintendo and release a Microsoft handheld. And let me explain to you very quickly why that is probably one of the worst ideas Microsoft can do right now. So in this article, they talk about how Microsoft should get into the handheld game because the Nintendo Switch is not powerful enough. Okay, that's fine. I would ask them which chip Microsoft would decide to use, considering the Tegra X1 is the most capable chip right now on the go. Their big argument seems to be that Microsoft should get into the handheld game and bring a more powerful system to handhelds. And I'm not really sure, they don't even know, from what I can tell because I read the article, they don't even know where they would get that kind of power from what I can see. They just talk about Scorpio and bringing over the AAAs to handheld and everything. I can tell you now, if Microsoft wanted to make a handheld, they would probably go to AMD and ask for their Merlin series, which is not an X1. It's not as strong. It's close, but it's not there. And realistically, they would have to use an X1. Would NVIDIA let them use the X1? I don't know what their deal is with Nintendo. Maybe not. Maybe they're stuck in with Nintendo. And realistically, the thing that is selling the Switch, or that is at least attempting to sell the Switch going forward, because we don't have all the games, are the games. Microsoft would do something like bring Halo or Forza to Japan, where they just don't care about that. That is your big handheld market right now is Japan. They will flood Nintendo Switches for the next 4 years. I'm telling you, they will sell out Switches there probably for quite a while. And Microsoft has no footing in Japan. I mean, really, the other day, I think I looked at Media Crates and the Xbox One sold 68 units. And the Switch sold 45,000 units. Do you really think if they walk into Japan with a handheld that says Microsoft's logo on it, they're going to sell? No, they won't sell. America may buy it, of course, but they're not going to buy it if it's the same power as the Switch with no games. You're going to buy the Switch, right? Sure, a Halo game can go to it, but that's only going to get so far. Forza is only going to get so far. I mean, really, you could probably release a simulation driving game on the Switch, but realistically, Mario Kart would beat Forza when you put them head-to-head and handheld games. It just would. Mario Kart's going to outsell it. So, no. Opinion piece writer at Forbes, not a good idea for Microsoft to get in. They would lose a ton of money. Investors would probably try to shut down the Xbox brand cold right then and there if they announced this. So, No, no handheld from Microsoft. What they need to do right now is get their consoles on track with their Scorpio and the regular Xbox One and get some exclusives there. Because if there are not a lot of exclusives E3, it's going to be a tough sell come holiday season for the Scorpio when the PS4 Pro has more exclusives and the Switch is rolling into the holidays with some of the most popular ones like Mario and Pokemon and Zelda. Like, I don't understand the thought here. Let them get their Scorpio right, and then maybe they can look into it, but it's a waste of money either way to go near the handheld. If Sony could not beat Nintendo in the handheld market, what chance does Microsoft have? And the last bit of news, guys, is pretty awesome. We got our first look at Zelda Breath of the Wild's first big DLC. We, of course, had some of the chests in the beginning that gave us like a Switch shirt and some little things, but this is the first bit that is actually worth, I would say, the money that you put in for that season pass that they put out, the expansion pass, if you want to call it that. This is DLC marked DLC 1, and it, of course, is the real first big one that is in the line of the other one that's later on this year that should be the really big story one. This is the first one that is promising things like hard mode and some other extra things and outfits and everything, and they actually came to the table here with more than I was expecting. So according to them, it's available this summer. They did say that even if you've beaten the game or you're just now starting out, this stuff will be available to you. Like, you can go to it whenever you want. I mean, that's kind of the idea of Zelda anyway, so it makes sense why this is the case. Now, I do think hard mode would be something that would be cool to kind of start the game up with rather than jump over to it, but you can jump to it anyway. The first thing they talk about, though, is Trial of the Sword. It looks like it is going to do something with the Master Sword, specifically because at the end they say you will awaken the power of the Master Sword, the true power. Because, of course, we all know the Master Sword is not, I guess, the beast that it should be in that game. It has some drawbacks, whereas I still think the Master Sword should be like the broken sword in the game, mostly, well, never broken sword, you know? It runs out of power, but it does have strength against evil. I'll be curious to see how they buff it further, but what happens is you go into what is essentially like an arena, or in their case they call it Trial of the Sword, where you go through a bunch of rooms that mostly have enemies that you fight, win against, you move on to the next one. They say that there are 45 rooms. That's quite a while. That seems like a marathon run, unless you could save between rooms. I assume you can, because the idea of Zelda is that you can kind of pick it up and play it whenever you want. 45 rooms could take quite a while, depending on how long it takes to get through each one. But again, a really cool piece to add. After that, we of course get to hard mode, where they will do things like give enemies larger health. They will also regen health. And then they also talk about enemies and chests coming from the sky. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but that sounds pretty awesome as well. Then they go over to something called Heroes Path Mode. And this, I think, is one of the coolest ideas for this game, because the one great thing about Zelda is you can explore anywhere you want. The one bad thing about Zelda is sometimes it's hard to tell where you have been and where you've not been. Like, you know, sometimes you'll just kind of look at the map and be like, I feel like I've been over there. I don't remember. Let me go over there. And then you realize you've been there before. But Heroes Path Mode is awesome. Apparently, what they're saying is it's going to show you where you have been for the last 200 hours. Yes, for the last 200 hours, it will track where you have been. From what they are saying, it'll be kind of like, I guess, footsteps or maybe just parts of the map that are kind of darkened and you can't see. Maybe paths are drawn around. It's really hard to say how they're going to do it. But this is great, because what they are trying to do here is help you progress in the game without being frustrated. You know, maybe there are parts of the map that are dark or that don't have footsteps past them, and that's probably where shrines are. So instead of wandering aimlessly, which I've seen those I don't want to say arguments, but those complaints that they kind of wander aimlessly, you will know where you have not been. And that'll make the game a little more fun, I think, a little more convenient. Like I talked about, that's a big part of the Switch, being convenience, because you don't have to wander around for ages and get frustrated not knowing where a shrine may be. This is a great way to kind of help you without telling you exactly where. They also talk about something called a travel medallion that will be located somewhere in the world in a chest. When you get it, you can start marking waypoints to travel to, fast travel. So if you want to fast travel to the top of a mountain somewhere, or in the middle of an ocean, I guess, on an island, you can just set the point. And whenever you want, apparently you can fast travel to it. You can only set one point at a time, so you will have to, I guess, erase the old one before you set a new one. I like this idea, though, because then you can kind of leave a spot that you've discovered and then come back to it later if you need to stock up on something, or let's say you found a really cool area that you like to visit whenever you want. You can do that. And of course, no DLC is complete without new outfits, so they're going to give us the Phantom Armor, Majora's Mask, the Midna's Helmet, and of course, for some reason, Tingle's outfit. Why not, right? And the last thing that I see here that they're going to give us is the Korok mask, which is another good idea to keep us from being frustrated because it will vibrate when you get towards, so if it'll like HD Rumble will go off, when you get close to a hidden Korok. So the ones you're finding all the seeds, it will start vibrating and say, hey, you're near it. I assume it'll be kind of like maybe in that shrine noise where you can set it to go off. But it'll at least give you an idea that you are within reach of one rather than just accidentally walking by one that may be 10 feet away from you. And I'm honestly happy with this part of the DLC because this is not supposed to be the big one from what they've said. The really big one is supposed to be later on in the year around holiday season where they're going to add a big new part of the map, story, all this stuff they've kind of outlined for us while keeping it mildly vague. I mean, hard mode looks cool, but that even looks to be the smaller part of this DLC because people are complaining about hard mode. No, this looks like it's kind of just lumped in there with all this other cool stuff. So far so good with this DLC because this is the small part and the big part is coming up. This whole thing is $20 and this seems to be worth almost that amount with the stuff they're giving you, where you're going to power up the sword, you get all these cool little map variations to help you along your way, and I'll be very curious to see what this new story mode is coming up, because if this is just a little bit of the DLC, I am very excited for the next part. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think about anything we talked about today, whether it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sales, maybe you like the game a lot and you're happy to see that it's doing well and that it probably will do well for quite a while. Maybe you want to talk about Microsoft's weird foray into the handheld market that this person over at Forbes decided is a good idea. I don't know about that one. Or maybe you're really excited for the Zelda DLC, guys. I'm very, very interested in your thoughts on the Zelda DLC. I think it looks good so far. I can't wait till the next one. That's it for now, guys. I will see you next time.